You guys just tell me when you're ready to start.
Why don't you go ahead and
Who's deciding that?
start?
You're the
Okay.
mayor.
Stream is up now.
Nils, you're good?
Yep, looks like we're streaming just fine.
Okay,
Are
perfect.
we good with, was Jim okay?
Yeah, he has not responded to me.
Jim Olson, can you hear me?
Diane, what is his number? Is he one of the numbers that called in?
His number is, well, since it's public, I can say it.
Well, I don't.
His cell
Just
is,
maybe say the last two numbers or something.
well, it would be 42. His cell ends in 42. Do you have
Yeah,
that?
he's not here yet.
I see his number on there listed, but it's muted.
Okay. So do we know if Jim, if that's you, will you please unmute so that you can respond and let us know you're listening?
Doesn't Nils have to do that for the call-ins?
I'm
It-
showing,
Either way,
I don't see one. He said it was ending in 4-2.
yeah, his cell ends in 42. He has a home number. I don't know which way he's listed
He
publicly.
was on there, but it's gone now.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So maybe he'll try calling back again.
Okay, well, I mean, it's understandable. This is our first time and it's difficult. So we'll just go ahead and start. And if he does happen to join us, hopefully he'll let us know. So I'd like to call to order the April 14th meeting of the Common Council meeting. It is 7 p.m. and the meeting was posted. The meeting was posted. We'll continue with the roll call. I'll just go ahead and do the roll call. Mayor Kim Smith is here. Alderperson Tom Smith.
I'm here.
Alderperson Jim Olson.
I just got a text from Jim Olson that he can hear us, but he can't say anything, so he's with us in spirit.
All right, thank you for that, Jim. We appreciate your presence, however we can take it. Alderperson Dan Stevens,
Present?
Alderperson Diane Wolf,
Here.
and Alderperson Stephen Knott.
Present.
Thank you. We'll continue with the Pledge of Allegiance. So let's do that in unison. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Very good. Okay, I would continue on with the rules of the subcommittee. The rules of the City of Onalaska Common Council and its subcommittees for a harassment-free forum, but I don't happen to have that in front of me, so I will just reiterate that those are our rules and please follow them. Item 4 is public input. Do we have any notification of public wishing to have input? If the public wanted to, go ahead.
Yeah, this is Pastor Park Hunter from Onalaska United Methodist Church, and if I could offer a word of prayer during the public comment here, I'd love to do that.
Thank you, Mark. We appreciate that.
Sure. So Pastor Park Hunter from Onalaska United Methodist Church. The address is 212 4th Avenue North here in Onalaska. And first of all, congratulations to Mayor Smith. That's great to see you stepping up in leadership, and glad to see you stepping in now, and this is a difficult time to do that. So just on behalf of the churches here in Onalaska, I want to offer a word of prayer for those who are inclined, and for those who aren't, just bear with us for a minute here, and then we'll be on to the business. So for those who would like to pray, Lord, we are grateful for this evening and for those public servants who are able to continue to serve, even in the midst of this somewhat trying time. We're especially grateful for all of our essential workers and our public safety personnel, those who are making sure that our lights stay on and that our streets are safe, that we have the things that we need to get by. Lord, we're grateful to live in a community that is full of neighbors that care about each other and that have worked to reach out to one another and make sure that everyone is safe. And we pray for healing for those who are sick. Lord, we pray for a swift end to this epidemic, and we ask that you would help us as we seek to set our economy back on its feet as well. We are grateful this time of year for the promise of hope that Easter offers to us. We lift these things up in your name. Amen.
Amen. Amen.
Amen. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Paul.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Thank you. Okay, before we continue on with the public input, since this is our first remote conferencing meeting, and I do have a call-in number and a meeting ID that I'm going to say right now in case there are people who perhaps are watching, or even Jim. Sorry about that.
It's public input.
So now when
It's
my
limited to
face,
3 minutes.
when my face turns red.
Don't we love this work at home thing? It's pretty common today.
My name is Rover. I live in Unalaska, and I want to get more treats.
How embarrassing. Okay, so anyway, the phone-in number, if you'd like to join us by phone, is 1-312-626-6799. That's one. Can you hear it okay? Over the
Yes.
barking
Yes.
dog?
Yeah.
1-312-626-6799. And then the meeting ID is 826-920-199. And the password is 54650. So then I'll ask again if there's anyone who has public input.
Yes,
Please say your name and your address, please.
Paul Hanson, 3428 South Kenny Cooley Road in Onalaska. Once again, congratulations, Mayor Smith, on your appointment. Looking forward to working with you in the city.
Thank you.
As you guys are aware, I'd like to comment about the rezoning in your planning commission item E in regards to rezoning the properties at 3015 and 3075 South Kenny Cooley Road in Onalaska. I did submit public comments to you guys to read. I'll just briefly go through them. I'm not going to read them because you certainly have read them. The main reasons for the objections are a couple-fold. Number one, the city of Onalaska and Gunderson Lutheran entered into covenants back in 2003. And here we are already, in 2020, changing the covenants. The second concern I have with the rezoning the way it's proposed today is the traffic safety. As part of these covenants, and the reason I bring up traffic safety as a part of this, is as part of the covenants with Gunderson and the city, Farm and Fleet was made to close their access on Highway 16. So we have been following the covenants that were produced. But the things I see with the covenant with this development that we're not following right away is some things that, prohibited uses that have excessive vehicular traffic, freestanding restaurants, freestanding retail uses, and taverns and bars. And what you see in the site plan you have there is a freestanding restaurant, a freestanding retail use with in excess of vehicular traffic. The other thing that has occurred, one thing with the liquor license and things is I believe that whatever development goes here, there should be no liquor license or beer licenses allowed. I was part of the development of the convenience store across the street. They're very adamant about taverns and selling of liquor on their development. So once again, I would propose that you might add that to that. The other interesting thing with this is that they're not following the covenants. It's uncharted territory in that this is the first development that Gunderson's going to be doing on their property that's not operated by Gunderson, and they're already asking for covenants. These covenants were established in 2003 due to the fact that all the Gunderson buildings have followed these covenants. You know, and as you drive around and you've all been to their clinics, they do follow the covenants. Why in the world doesn't the city of Onalaska make this new develop follow their covenants? Final thing is, and the most important, is the traffic safety. What's being proposed is a very high use retail facility. My calculations with the sales of the possible buildings and things, and I know I've talked to Jared and traffic engineers, you're going to have anywhere from 1,800 to 2,000 cars entering to this property a day, which basically is almost 4,000 turning movements a day on a single driveway. It'll be the first commercial development that Onalaska has with this kind of traffic where there's a single driveway. The other thing that's terrible about this driveway location, other than it's single, is that it's just
3
coming
minutes.
around a curve. Oh, it was timed?
Yeah, you have
Yes,
3
it's-
minutes, yeah. It's okay, just finish
Well, then
your
I-
sentence there. I think you're nearing the end anyways, and we do
Sure.
appreciate your.
Well, then in closing, I guess, you know, it's not, I think the city of Onalaska can fix this. I think if they just allow a single Chick-fil-A restaurant and eliminate the other commercial use building, it would allow them to follow all the covenants that were established. It would also allow them to have a secondary traffic access on School District Road. So I'd ask that the council look at this seriously, that accidents, you know, you don't pass something where accidents are going to occur all the time, and that you reconsider looking at the proposal the way it's been presented.
Okay, thank you for your comments. We appreciate them. Is there anyone else who wishes to address the council? I'll ask one more time if we have anybody in the listening audience who would like to address the council. And then one final call for any opportunity to address the council. Okay, not hearing anyone, we'll move on then to the report from the mayor. Item A is the Arbor Day proclamation. Since we're in audio, I'll read the proclamation today, proclaiming Arbor Day, April 24th of 2020. Whereas in 1872, J. Sterling Morton proposed to the Nebraska Board of Agriculture that a special day be set aside for the planting of trees. And whereas this holiday called Arbor Day was first observed with the planting of more than 1 million trees in Nebraska, and Arbor Day is now observed throughout the nation and the world. And whereas trees reduce the erosion of our precious topsoil by wind and water, cutting heat and cooling costs, moderating the temperature, clean the air, produce oxygen, and provide habitat for wildlife. And whereas trees in our city increase property values, enhance the economic vitality of business areas, and beautify our community. And whereas the city of Onalaska has been recognized as a Tree City USA for the 20th consecutive year by the National Arbor Day Foundation for demonstrating a higher level of tree care and desires to continue a tree planting practices. Now, therefore, I, Kim Smith, Mayor of the City of Onalaska, do hereby proclaim April 24th, 2020 as Arbor Day in the City of Onalaska, and I urge all citizens to celebrate Arbor Day and to support efforts and to protect our trees and woodlands. And further, I urge all citizens to plant trees on their property, as the City of Onalaska will plant over 200 trees throughout the city this year. Item B under the mayor's report is a community update on the COVID-19 situation. I just wanted to take this opportunity to, first of all, thank our police and fire departments for continuing to respond to the emergency needs of our residents. And also to the public works and other city staff who are working to provide the city services that so often go unnoticed. And of course, our clerk's department and the election workers who worked many hours making sure that we could all exercise our right to vote in some pretty adverse conditions this year. They're all dedicated public servants who know our community, who knows that our community is relying on them, and thank you. I also want to thank our community for staying safe at home, helping to keep all of us healthy. We really appreciate your patience as we've had very limited staff at City Hall. There has been a longer turnaround time in some cases. People have been reaching out to me But most people have been patient and we're all doing the best we can to work through this. Just as a few helpful public reminders, our parks are open as long as people don't gather in groups, but the restrooms are locked and closed. So do not go to the park thinking to use the restroom. And then the most common question that I've had has been related to the yard waste. And so I'd like to, if Jared is on the call, turn it over to him so that he can just give a quick update on the situation, because we've made some changes to the yard waste. And with our limited staffing everywhere, the communication maybe isn't getting relayed as efficiently as normal. Jared, are you available?
I am. Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to reiterate that our solid waste provider, Harder's Quick Cleanup, is delivering yard waste carts to those who do purchase yard waste stickers. The stickers are available for purchase. We are currently accepting Dropbox payments, and stickers are then conveyed to the individuals. And once the payment is received, they will get on the list to get delivered their yard waste cart. We are still accepting yard waste bags through the week of April 27th. Only yard waste bags or the yard waste container will be picked up. No other containers will be allowed. And if residents have questions, they can call our recycling hotline at 781-9500. And there's an updated daily message, and or if they leave a message for our staff will return the phone call.
Thanks a lot, Jared. I really appreciate that, and I'm sure our community members do too. And then my final comment, just to alert, even though the election results were offset a week from the actual election, we are still planning on going ahead with our annual council reorganization meeting 1 week from today. That meeting will be held in this same format. So hopefully we'll take what we learned from this meeting and be this working real smoothly next week. But heads up to community members who may be interested that we do have some committee assignments available for community members. So please send me an email as soon as possible if you're interested in being considered for an appointment for a city committee. I'll need to know that very soon because that is in process. So that's all my updates. I'm going to go on then to item C, ratification of the mayoral proclamation for emergency order 2. The emergency order was in your packet, and I would like to ask the Common Council to approve emergency order number 2.
I'll make a motion that we approve emergency order number 2.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion on the floor by. Oh, I can't hear Eric. Eric?
I have Jim Olson on the phone. He made the motion, but I had my microphone on mute, so I didn't get to you in time to tell you that Jim made the motion to approve.
Okay, so we will note that Jim Olson is now attending not only in spirit, but in actual presence, and has made the motion to approve emergency order 2. And then I'll put Steve Knott down then, because he was the next person. He will become the second, if that's okay with Alderperson Knott. He says no. No.
That's fine, yeah.
It's a motion by Jim Olson, seconded by Steve Knott. Is there any discussion on emergency order number 2? Not hearing any, we'll ask for the vote then. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say no. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Now we will move on to recommendations for approval and or possible action from the following committees, commissions, and boards. All items listed under the consent agenda are considered routine and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion on these items unless a council member requests removal, in which event the item will be removed from the consent agenda and considered in the order of business in the non-consent agenda. So item 6, the consent agenda. Is there anybody that would like to, is there any items? Okay, Alder Knott, what item would you like removed?
Based on the letter and then also on the public input we just received,
I'd like to remove item, I guess it's C under the Plan Commission with the approval of the Plan Commercial Industrial Development at the Kinney Cooley Road properties.
Thank you, sir. Items under Planning Commission, item C has been removed from the consent agenda. Are there any other items any of the council members would like removed? Okay, not hearing any, I would like to entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll move that we approve the consent agenda.
I second, Tom.
Okay, we have a motion by Alderperson Dan Stevens, seconded by Alderperson Tom Smith to approve the consent agenda. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, please say
Just a
aye.
clarification, because there are a lot of people who are listening. So we're approving the consent agenda without item C.
Correct. Item C has been removed from the consent
Right.
agenda.
I just want to make sure that, I mean, I knew that. I just want to make sure it's clear for everybody.
Okay. All right, so we're back to the vote then. The vote is to approve the consent agenda. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. The consent agenda is approved. Now we'll move on to the non-consent agenda, and the first item is 7, a recap of items pulled from the consent agenda. We only have one item that was pulled from the consent agenda. It is Plan Commission, item C, approval of the planned commercial industrial development amendment filed by Venture Pass Partners LLC, 19620 Waterford Court, Shorewood, Minnesota, 55331, on behalf of the Gunderson Clinic LTD, 1900 South Avenue, La Crosse, Wisconsin, 54601, on the parcel located at 315, 3015, and 3075 Kinney Cooley Road South, parcel number 183649-1 and 183649-2. So I'd like to ask the alderperson representative on the Plan Commission to make a motion regarding this item. I guess that would be me. So then if another alderperson could please make a motion regarding this item.
I can second. I'm on planning commission. I'm sorry. This is Tom.
Okay, so you're gonna make a motion for what? I can't make the motion, so I need to have someone, a council person should make the motion, either to approve or to not approve it, and then we can have a discussion and we can have a vote. End of the discussion, you don't have to vote. Even if you made a motion to approve it, you can vote against it, but we do need to have a motion in order to get it on the floor.
Okay, this is Tom. I'll make a motion that we approve it for discussion.
Diane Wolf, I will second.
Okay, so I have a motion from Alderperson Tom Smith, seconded by Alderperson Diane Wolf, to approve the PCID amendment filed by Venture Pass, as I described previously, which is Plan Commission item C. Now, under discussion, who would like to go first? Alder Knott?
Since I'm the one who pulled it, I guess I'll explain what's on my mind. I'm thinking maybe we should kick this back to the Planning Commission for further consideration. And I base that on two different items. First off, Mr. Hanson is, he's put forth a very well researched list of concerns. And what impressed me even more was he actually listed some reasonable recommendations. And it's nice to see that too. But another piece on it, that the second item that concerns me is that he indicates that either he was misinformed or just was unclear of his option to be present or to be heard, I guess, by the Plan Commission to hear his concerns. And I'd like the Plan Commission to hear his concerns. I'm not, I don't know that we should just outright disapprove it at this point, because I think there's, a lot that happened in the Plan Commission. That's why we have them, where they probably had a lot of discussion as well that, it's a big picture that needs to be taken into play before it comes back to us. So that's kind of where I am. Now, it doesn't mean that it's going to change their decision, but I just like his concerns to be heard.
Okay, hearing that, thank you for that, Alderman Knott. I'd like to turn it over to Katie, because at the Plan Commission meeting, I think we did recommend to people if they were unable to attend, that they submit their comments. So I'm wondering if Katie is on the call, if she could maybe give us a recap of the comments she heard, maybe summarize what happened at Plan Commission, and a recap of maybe the department's position on this and what public input they've had. Is Katie on the call?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. So at the Plan Commission meeting, yes, Mr. Hansen was given incorrect information by someone that the meeting was not going to be held. So at that meeting, we did have I believe it was 4 emails that came in. The emails that came in were more in disagreement that Chick-fil-A should be coming into the city of Onalaska, not for the overall development itself. We also had 2 individuals come in and speak against the development for those reasons as well in person. We did notify, as you had stated, that any public that was unable to attend or did not want to, they could notify staff. So myself and Jared Holter have been in contact with Mr. Hansen discussing questions that they had about it. And I did receive the email and it did make it into the Common Council packet for consideration along with the remainder of the agenda tonight. City staff, in general, planned commercial industrial districts are much like a planned unit development, where there are rules that are specific to each development in its own right. They're not necessarily covenants, but they are conditions of approval. So anyone who has this overlay over top of one of their properties has the ability to come in and ask the Plan Commission and Common Council to make changes. It's a common process. We do anywhere from 4 to 5 of these every year. There are a number of these properties generally in the State Road 16 area. In the last year or so, we've had similar developments where there's shared access. We've had multiple buildings on a single property, and some of these developments have been within very short distance of what we have for this particular property on Gunderson's property here tonight. The uses have been listed in the staff report, talking about restaurants, full service, fast casual, fast food. There's also potential for retail sale. And then they also included all the original uses that were in the planned commercial industrial district approved back in 2002. I would let Jared discuss site accessibility. It's more in his wheelhouse than mine, but if there's any questions that you would have for me this evening, I'm happy to answer that.
Okay, does the council have a question for Katie before we move on to Jared? I see Tom raising his
Mr. Mayor,
hand.
yeah, Ms. Mayor. Yeah, I do have a question because I was on the Planning Commission and I know you were there too, Mayor. This covenant thing, that didn't come up. So what you're saying is we can overlay a covenant that was agreed upon years ago that is no longer binding?
So it's not a covenant per se, it's a condition of approval. So much like whenever we approve a planned unit development or one of these overlay districts, the city comes up and we generate a list of conditions that essentially is a contract between the city and the property owner. However, it is up to the property owner, if in the future they want to do redevelopment, that they can come back to the city and say, okay, we want to modify it. And because we want to modify it, in this case, the city required a traffic analysis as a condition of approval. So they still have to follow all of the original conditions that were created unless they specifically go in and change them. So for this particular development, we had 9 conditions of approval that are tied to this particular phase of the development, in addition to the ones that were there before. Though this may supersede a couple of them, primarily in terms of use of the property. And this again is a common practice that the city does with property owners and developers throughout the community.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for that, Katie. Tom, did you have a follow-up question or are you good?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
Okay, does anyone else have a question for Katie? And then after this, we'll go to Jared.
Not a question, but I know Jared's probably going to address this anyway, I would imagine, but certainly the traffic is one of the traffic patterns be one of the biggest things I'd like to learn more about.
Okay, we'll go ahead and go to Jared then if you're available
Yep.
to speak generally about this development, if you would like, Jared, or
Yep.
specifically about the traffic.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I did talk to Mr. Hanson. I did also review his letter that he did send in. As part of this development, when it first came in, we knew that there would be traffic impacts with this development. We did require as staff a traffic impact analysis to be performed. That traffic impact analysis was performed by SRF engineers and consultants. Have had work from them in the past. They did submit, we didn't include it with the packet tonight, but we do have on file a 46-page traffic impact analysis that was done with the report. Also with that, we have Short Elliott Hendrickson, SEH, do a lot of traffic engineering for the city. And with that, I forwarded the traffic impact analysis to them, their local office, then to their traffic engineer in Madison to review it, just because I had some questions about it and wanted to make sure that it was checked by another traffic engineer that just specializes in this area. If you read the traffic impact analysis, you know, I'm going to read a couple of paragraphs out of it here, but SEH did confirm, you know, that it appears to be done in accordance to standards, has the correct assumptions. You know, it will cause increased congestion, yes, in this area, but it is within the acceptable roadway operations for the area. Just from the traffic impact analysis conclusions and recommendations, they do go around on State Trunk Highway 16 with the few items out there on the State Trunk Highway. They do address some things with the driveway that goes into the Quick Trip area. And then the very last paragraph, bullet point in the traffic conclusions, I'll read: traffic operations at South Kinney Cooley Road and the proposed site access drive indicate satisfactory traffic operations with minimal delays and queues anticipated along South Kinney Cooley Road, particularly for the eastbound left turn movements. Then another bullet point below it, this indicates that no additional intersection improvements are necessary to accommodate the site traffic. I did drive out the area once I talked to Mr. Hanson and the site distances around the curve and everything. I think the traffic will, obviously we will have more traffic out in that area with this development. And the numbers that Mr. Hanson was referring to are some of the numbers that are in the report. And I can go into probably another 5 minutes of highlights from the traffic report, but one of the cruxes out there is that a lot of the traffic that's out there will be either at the Quick Trip or at the clinic. So there'll be a lot of it that's pass-through traffic that won't be new trips. If you look at the amount of traffic on that roadway currently, it is very underutilized for what we have for facility out there. The traffic volumes do not come anywhere close to what that facility can handle. And we also did look at that in the future with further growth at the Gunderson Clinic itself, if that would happen. We did look at how the roadway could be changed in the future. So I guess without having if you'd like, we could get a further indication from our city traffic engineer to go through it and give a report back based upon the traffic impact analysis that we got from the developer. But with that, I'm going with what I've read and what I have concluded from our, not only the developer's traffic engineer, but our traffic engineer in looking at this. So I guess I'd open up for questions with that.
Thank you, Jared. Do any counselors have any questions or further comments?
Your Honor.
So,
Okay, let's go to Diane. Or who said so? Was it Diane? You're muted, Diane.
Steve did.
Okay,
yeah, I'm
Steve,
sorry.
sorry. That's okay, Steve.
What I'm
Not.
hearing then from Jared is obviously, and I would also have concerns about the traffic there. You know, most of us, I'm sure, have used that Quick Trip there, and it can be difficult getting in and out. So there's some traffic there now. I know it's a very wide road, so there's no doubt in my mind it can handle more. But what I'm hearing then, Jared, is that the concerns that were laid out by Mr. Hanson, you think that the study are showing that, although I'm sure they're valid concerns, that they're largely unfounded though?
Well, I would not,
Go ahead, Jared. Sorry,
yep,
Jared.
I would not say they're unfounded. I would say that any development in that area is going to have congestion and increase in traffic. And I am not going to say you're never going to have a rear end accident at that location, because as the traffic impact analysis states, there will be during peak hour into the site in the morning, a little over 200 left turns into the site, and in the afternoon, just under 200. So you got a car, you got about 3.5 cars every minute trying to make a movement into that site as a left turn. So I would not say they're unfounded, but I think that the facility, from a traffic engineering standpoint, can is within the operational standards to adequately serve it.
Your Honor.
Okay, thank you, Jared. Let's go to Alderperson Stevens.
Thank you, Your Honor. So if I can summarize what we've learned tonight, and Katie and or Jared could correct me if I'm wrong. My understanding is that the city and the property owner can agree to changes after the plan was established, and that covenants are not, they're not covenants and they're not eternal. And we think that there will be increased traffic, but we can make that work. And then finally, the big concern I guess I have is that this information was given to Mr. Hanson and potentially other people, and I firmly believe that people should have their chance to speak to the governing body. So I'm going to make a motion that we refer this
Oh,
to. the next
excuse
meeting.
me. We have a motion on the floor.
Oh, I'm
The
sorry.
motion on the floor is to approve. So I guess you can let it be
Right.
known your position, and then we can talk about.
Okay, so my position is that there has not been sufficient means for public input to this. I understand what Katie and Jared have said, but I think the public should have its opportunity to address this if there was misinformation. So I'm not actually against this if this is the recommendation of staff and the Plan Commission. However, if there's other information, it should be able to go through its normal channels. And these are weird times. And I think if ever there was a time to make an accommodation for people to address their concerns to their municipal government, we should be more lenient now rather than less.
Okay, and I do know that we actually held this Plan Commission because of the timeliness with these matters. So I'm not sure if we want to ask Eric or Katie or Jared, one of those three, whoever is best able to answer what the ramifications of delaying action on this item are, if the council decides to.
Amanda has a comment too. I would say based on the action of the Plan Commission, some of the questions that has been presented this evening, as Katie has mentioned, and as Jared has talked about the review of that, I think in effect, it would be delaying it at minimum a month with the same recommendation coming back to the council. Yeah, ultimately the council is the one that, based on the information, is going to make the decision, yes or no. So I'm not sure there's gonna be a whole lot of value because they're gonna basically say the same thing, come back to just kick it down a month.
Thank you. Amanda, did you have a comment?
I just wanted to let you know that Randy with Venture Pass Partners, who's representing the development, is also on the phone and available to answer questions, and also from his end could speak to the delay in the time frame. Randy, are you there?
We have the phones on mute.
Okay, does the council wish to hear from Randy from Venture Past Partners?
Yes, I would.
You would like to hear from him, okay. We'll
Are we-
just pause while the technical details are worked out, and we will hear from the representative from the.
Katie,
Just one item of note, if you do refer back to the Plan Commission is not meeting until the end of May. So you would not have this back to you until the middle of June. It would actually be a 2-month delay.
Diane, would you like to say something while we're waiting?
Yes, Mayor, so are we observing the raise hand function, or are we not doing that tonight?
You can do that, sure.
Okay, because yeah,
Would you like to speak? You can speak now.
no, I mean the raise hand function on Zoom, because I've been using it, but I don't know if anyone.
No,
Oh, I didn't see that. No, I thought you meant literally raising.
Oh,
your
no.
hand.
I
That
was
would
trying to
work.
get away from the literal. Anyway, so my one question I have is, who will retain ownership of this property?
Katie, are you able to answer that?
It's my impression that Venture Pass will be purchasing this. Gunderson will only be retaining the rights to the sign that is currently on the property through an easement.
Okay. I just wanted to clear that up. Thank you for that.
Mayor?
This is
Yes.
Randy with Venture Past Partners. If when it's appropriate, I'll address.
Thank you, Randy. Welcome to our meeting.
Mhm.
Due to technical, details of having meetings in these times, the council is considering postponing action because we feel we haven't had, we're concerned that some public may not have had a chance to provide input on this topic. And so we would like to know, what are the implications of delaying this approval of this plan?
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, I just wanted to thank everybody for holding this meeting. Obviously, these are very challenging times, and I appreciate you've taken the effort and gone through the steps to pull a meeting together. But it is much appreciated. We're a little concerned about this approval process, knowing that we've got to go through the city permitting process. We've also got to go through the process with the state of Wisconsin, and we do have some key dates within our purchase agreements with Gunderson Health Systems or Gunderson Clinics, where we have to meet some obligations for having approvals in place. So, a month delay was a little concerning. Talking about 2 months, probably a little more concerning. But I guess that's the biggest concern. If I'm understanding Katie correctly, it's potentially a delay until May. Is it possible that it just comes back directly to council as opposed to the planning commission? I'm not sure what those options would be for us. I guess I want to take the time just to address a couple of the comments that had come through early and from our neighbor. We respect all of those opinions and we appreciate that feedback. But I think we look at a PCAD that was created back in 2003. 17 years have passed. A lot of things change in the market. A lot of things change in needs, and a lot of things change in just market conditions. And it seems very reasonable that after that time frame, as people reassess the needs on a property, that there's going to be a time that revisions or changes like this are requested, and those seem very reasonable. Obviously, these uses that we're requesting are all in line with the underlying zoning, and those are all approved uses that are appropriate for that zone. There was discussion of even having a single use or a standalone restaurant on the site, and that really is a non-starter, and that you're looking at 3 acres of prime commercial property. A single user of that size is not going to ever justify or support the purchase of that much prime real estate. In fact, these numbers are challenging even with the strip center. So that's an item that really would be unpalatable. In terms of traffic, I think Jared addressed it very well, and we went through the process with SRF. We know that he did some peer review with Short Elliott Hendrickson, and I think the report did speak for itself. We were directed to keep that driveway as far east as possible, far away from Quick Trip, far away from the intersection, I think, to allow it to function as best as it can. And also noting that there's 2 full lanes of traffic both directions. So even with left turns onto this site, there's always going to be a full through lane of traffic, continuing on to the east. So I think that, we can look at those facts and numbers again, but I think, as Jerry indicated, that both SRF and SEH had really concurred that that was appropriate for this site. I think that's probably the comments that we would have. You know, we're anxious to move this forward. We're anxious to satisfy approval requirements and contingencies with the land seller, with Gunderson. And if there are ways to avoid having a delay on this, that would be much appreciated. But with that, you know, we'll leave it to your discussion, and if there's anything, you know, that we can address further, or any questions that we can answer, just let us know that.
Thank you, sir, for standing by.
Yes.
Let's go to Tom Smith for his
Yeah.
question.
Mayor, I just wanted to say, you know, you and I were both on the planning commission, and we did kind of go through this quite a lot. And that was our biggest concern, was traffic. Because I brought that up too, and, you know, Jared explained it and went through quite a lot with Katie, and we went through it. So the planning commission felt comfortable that, yes, we know it's going to be a busy place, and it's going to, but I don't think it's going to change anything. And I think, like Eric said, that I think we can go through and do another study. But I think the studies and the conclusions of the engineer is that it's acceptable within this. So I still think that that's why the planning commission approved it and moved it on, because we did have a lot of discussion on this, and it was the last meeting before the shutdown. And even the folks that were supposed to come, the developers, their plane their flights got canceled that day, so they couldn't even be here.
Right.
And so that's why we didn't have to. We appreciate talking to them now on the phone. But there was a lot of discussion on the traffic thing, and so I just wanted to say the history is that the planning commission did go through all these discussions before we sent it on to the council. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for that input, Tom. Is there any other council members that would like to have a question or a comment? Diane?
Thank you, Your Honor. I agree with Tom. I've been following this closely because I know there has been a lot of questions and community input about this, and I will be supporting going forward with this evening. Thank you.
Thank you,
Yes.
Alderperson Wolf. Yeah, who would like to speak?
Steve, not.
Steve, not, go ahead.
Yeah, so I think that I feel much better about this now that I've heard everything. And my initial concern about wanting to have Mr. Hanson heard, I think he has been heard. I mean, we've been discussing this for quite some time now, based upon his phone call and on his public input by phone, I should say, and his letter. So I think he's been heard by the Common Council, and obviously we've considered what he said for quite a while. So I know what my initial comment was, but I don't think we need to refer this back. I think we can make a decision here.
Okay, are there any other counselors that would like to have a comment? Okay, not seeing anyone. I think are we ready to vote?
I would ask for a roll call because it might make it easier.
Sure, yep, that sounds good. Is
Thank you.
there a staff member on hand who could record the roll?
I can.
Thank you, Carrie. Okay, so the motion on the floor is referring to Plan Commission Item C, which is approval of a planned commercial industrial development for the property located on Kinney Cooley Road South. And the motion on the floor is to approve the planned commercial industrial development. The roll call will be a roll call vote, so please answer as your name is called. And I'll turn it over to Carrie for the roll call vote.
Jim Olson. Okay. Tom Smith,
Aye.
Diane Wolf,
Aye.
Dan Stevens,
I'm going to abstain.
Stephen Knott,
Aye.
Okay,
we
so the
have 4
tally.
ayes and 1 abstain.
So the motion passes unanimously with 1 abstention. Thank you, everyone. And thank you for joining by phone, those of you who joined by phone for that item. Okay, now we're moving on to item 8 under the Finance Committee. And so what I'll do is I'll read the agenda item in its entirety. And then I will ask for the chair or whoever the council representative is to make a motion to put that item onto the floor, and then we'll have a second. So we'll have the motion put on the floor before the discussion starts, just so that we can move in a uniform manner through the through the agenda. Then we'll have discussion and then we'll have the vote. So under item 8, Finance Committee, item A is concerning vouchers. So then I'll ask Dan to make a motion regarding the vouchers.
Thank you, Your Honor. The following is a list of monies expended since the last Common Council meeting dated March 10th, 2020. And the total is $4,830,896.56 and recommend approval.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion on the floor to approve the vouchers. The motion was made by Dan Stevens and seconded by Diane Olson. Or sorry, got my alders all crisscrossed. I even put it, I must have been for Aldani.
There we go.
Alderperson Diane Wolf. Okay, is there any discussion on the vouchers? Okay, all those in favor of this motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Item B is approval of the Public Transportation Agency Safety Plan, PTASP, for the City of Onalaska as outlined by the Wisconsin Department of Transportation.
I'll make the motion for discussion.
I'll second this. Tom?
Okay, we have a motion by, okay, so the motion on the floor is for approval. So your motion is to discuss.
I'm making the
it.
motion to approve so that we can
Okay.
bring this to the floor.
Thank you.
Right, and
Okay,
I'll
so
second that.
we have a motion by Dan Stevens, seconded by Tom Smith, concerning this item. And the reason the public is listening and wondering why, the thing is, we normally, this would have went through committee first and then came to council. And in this case, we have not discussed this at a committee level. So now that we have the motion on the floor, I think we'll turn it to Fred if he's available so that he can give a summary of this item for the record. If that's okay with Fred, if he's available.
Yep, Fred is here, but not sure if you can hear me, but,
Nope, I can hear you.
okay. The the Federal Transit Authority, the federal government, Region 5 out of Chicago, requires that each entity that receives federal funding must have in place what I call the fixed assets of any equipment that's been purchased through federal funding. And since the city over the years has received shared ride vehicles and bus shelters, we are required under FTA rules and regulation. This is a new regulation by the federal government that we must have what they call a Public Transportation Agency Safety Plan. The City of Onalaska, along with many other organizations within the state of Wisconsin, have taken a position to attach themselves to the state of Wisconsin's Public Transportation Agency Safety Plan. By doing so, the document that each and every one of you have received is the state's plan, and the city is requesting this council to endorse this plan so the city won't need to spend numerous hours and legal counsel to put together its own plan.
Okay, thank you, Fred, for that discussion. Does someone have a question? Alder
Yeah, point of
Stevens?
order, Your Honor.
Yes.
This agenda item sounds like it's listed under Finance Committee. Would it be appropriate to refer to this as utilities, which deals with transportation? I'm not sure that it actually matters, but it seems like it's more of a utilities item than a finance item.
That is correct.
I guess I would refer to Amanda if that is important information.
I think since it didn't actually go to committee, not necessarily. I mean, the information is attached, the plan to the agenda, and it's on the agenda, so I think sufficient notice was given.
Well, like I said, I don't think it changes anything. It just seems like it's not in the right category. So that was my only concern.
Thank you. Alder Knott?
I just have questions. I'm looking at this. What does this accomplish that we're not already doing?
Excellent question. Fred, do you have an answer to that?
Well, I can tell you that you are right. The only, this is it puts more of a documentation by us attaching ourselves to the state of Wisconsin. Even though that we have been following what it needs to be, they just want someone that takes responsibility from the state of Wisconsin. That's why we attached ourselves to them, to make sure that if there's any parts of this regulation that change, the state of Wisconsin will make sure that the changes are made. So the rest of us, smaller units like the city of Onalaska, compared to like the Chicago or the Minneapolis transit, will fall under the same guidelines.
Thank you, Mr. Bueller. Are there any other questions or comments of the committee members or from the Common Council? Okay, not seeing any, then the motion that we have on the floor is to approve the Public Transportation Agency Safety Plan as described. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Those opposed say no. Motion carries unanimously. Item C is approval of the utilization of section 125 unspent forfeitures in the amount of $3,897.75 for the reimbursement of expenses.
Your Honor, this is Dan Stevens. I move that we approve item 8C as written for the agenda.
Thank you.
I will second that.
We have a motion on the floor by Alderperson Dan Stevens, seconded by Alderperson Diane Wolf to approve this expenditure of reimbursement of expenses. And I'll turn it over to Fred for an introduction, unless Alderperson Knott would like to ask a question first.
Just a comment. I got kicked when you took the vote for the PTSD, and I just want to go on record that I would have voted aye also. I'm assuming that it passed, or you would have had some
Okay.
other.
Yeah, so sorry. We called it as being unanimous, and now we can add your voice to
It
that.
is.
Thank you. And if that happens, to anyone else, just speak up. We know we are overcoming technical difficulties. Okay, so we're on item C now. We have a motion on the floor, and we're going to ask Fred to give us a little summary of what that all involves.
If you don't mind, Eric, did you want to comment first?
Yep. I'll take care of that. If you recall, this goes back to February, identified some confusing and potentially incorrect information given to us, then that was passed on to employee regarding the tax implications of Section 125 plan. As such, then some employees suffered a loss. This would, through no fault of their own. And so this transfer, which does not use any tax dollars, would reimburse those employees from that loss. It's coming from the 125 plan. If you contribute to 125 plan and then leave employment, employer cannot reimburse you back those expenses. And so you have a pot of money there that we would utilize to make good our current employees.
Thank you, Eric. Are there questions or comments from the Alder people?
Your Honor, this is Dan Stevens. I think in this case, I think the city has a responsibility to make good on its responsibilities for compensation to the staff, and I recommend that we support this.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments? We'll go ahead to the vote then, and the motion on the floor is to approve the utilization of these unspent forfeitures for a reimbursement of expenses. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Motion carries unanimously. Item D, discussion on the financial implications of the COVID-19 for the city of Onalaska. This is just a discussion item, and I'll turn it over to Eric to give a little summary of where we're at.
Yeah. The two key issues that we always face in the budgeting process is levy limits and expenditure restraints. Expenditure restraints are calculated budgeted to budgeted, not actual to actual. So knowing going forward, the expenses that we may incur for this will not impact our 2020 expenditure restraint calculations. Keeping in mind that the budget process, the comparison between 2020 and 2021 is being utilized for expenditure restraint payment, which we already know we were not going to get. So in this particular year, our expenses are fairly well covered. Levy limits is the next calculation that we always have to worry about in times like this. That is the amount of the property taxes that levied, again, for the 2020 budget year that's already been levied. The question has arisen, what happens in people's inability perhaps to pay their property taxes or a second installment of property taxes. There aren't many good news for revenue collection for municipalities in the state of Wisconsin based upon it's solely really based on the property tax. In this case, it's actually a good thing because our revenues are for most of the general fund come through the property taxes, which the county will eventually collect. And then if anybody does not pay through the county, unfortunately for the homeowner, but it does lead down to a long process that the county does, but the city is made whole with its payments. We do also get revenue though from other streams, and Dan is probably the best person to speak in terms of the Omni Center and Parks and Rec, which are users supported in a large way. Obviously, with lots of cancellations in the Omni Center, and the fact that the facility being shut down, there is lost revenue, which is slightly offset by the fact there's also less expenses because we're not paying for those opportunities. But for Omni Center, the uses of that lost revenue, as well as in the Dan Parks and Rec activities that we're collecting in. So we will see a negative impact when it comes to revenue from those streams for certain. But again, that could be offset by expenses. We won't know until this is all said and done. Utilities are user supported. We don't have major business manufacturing facilities when it comes to our water. So we should not see a massive decrease in utility revenue because of plant being shut down or what have you. I don't know, Jared, perhaps I don't know what the readings are, but with people staying home all day, we may actually show an increase in our rates uses for those that are working at home right now. I'll get into some of the expenses when it comes to personnel in my report later on. Room tax. Obviously, this goes back to Omni Center but also to the general fund portion. There are room tax collected will substantially be decreased this year. So we need to be aware of that for the programs of the room tax fund. Make matters worse, we do have requests from some of the hotels to either waive or delay payments on the room tax collection. That is discouraging because it's a tax collected. It never should have entered anyone's cash flow stream for a business because it's a tax above what you should be earning, and to keep a tax collected, I don't think they're doing that when it comes to sales tax or payroll taxes. I think they're probably paying them on, but it's a convenient way. But it's unfortunate, but that either way, we will have a decrease in room taxes, which will do support our other programs. Courts, obviously, the less amount of traffic. I think there's a lot less citations, and again, so I think we're going to start seeing less revenue come in from the courts. Also, Chief, you can speak to this. Prioritizing sort of the staff that we have for the types of calls that we're utilizing. I think we ultimately will see some decreased revenue when it comes to parking tickets and when it comes to the courts as well. How we weather the storm when we need to pay for that. Again, I've mentioned this before, thanks to Fred and thanks to this council and all previous councils, you have a very healthy reserve in the city here, and we will be able to tap into that for these expenses if necessary. So any questions, or Dan or Jared, are you going to add anything, please do so, or Fred, please do so.
Okay.
Yeah, I got a question, Mary.
Tom
I
Smith.
don't know if Eric or Dan, have we had cancellations going into summer now and everything yet, or has it just been mostly April, May, kind of June for like the Omni Center or the Park and Rec? I know we haven't started any of the park stuff, but I'm just curious if there's been cancellations coming in for future things.
Let's go to
We-
Dan, let's go to Dan Wick if he's available, and Dan, just maybe do a summary of where you're at.
Right.
if you
Yeah,
could.
I mean, all of the programs have been canceled. You know, all of the spring stuff, the Omni Center stuff, we're still holding out hope. We've got all of our park shelters and basically all the facilities at the Omni are rented at the end of May for graduation parties and things. So we're hopeful that'll start. The positive is we've a number of the events that have canceled have rebooked in other dates, or we're still in the process of looking for other dates for them to fill. So we're hopeful that, you know, at least probably 50-60% of the events that did cancel, we've been able to plug in different weekends. So hopefully it can carry us forward for those times.
Good, that's encouraging. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Dan. Who else would like to speak? Does anyone have any questions or comments? Just wa-
I guess I had a
go ahead.
question.
Alderperson Stevens.
So do we have options as, I guess this is more for Fred Bueller. If we were to delay collection on the room tax, I totally understand Eric's point that they're collecting a tax that's not really their money, it's over and above what the collection is. But if we had a way to help out local hoteliers, is there any sort of like recourse? Can we charge interest or a holding fee if we delay collection? Or is that, I know this is regulated by the statutes, so what are the rules?
This is, I think it's actually state statute. Would Fred or Amanda prefer to answer that? Or Eric? Eric would like to answer that. Thank you, Eric.
Yes, the collection and the expenses is, you know, the room tax is dictated through state statute, but we have a body that actually, through the Room Tax Commission, that sets the revenue and the expenses, and that's been approved. So the city, we get a portion of that, but it's only through the approval of Room Tax Commission, which has members, you know, from hotels, from the community as general, and from elected officials that dictate that. So us alone in this room can't unilaterally waive a fee or delay those fees or impart those fees, because one statute dictates it, and two, there is a body that through statute has to make that decision.
Thank you, Eric. Does anyone else want to make a comment on that?
Amanda would.
The only comment I could make, Mayor Smith, is the city has Chapter 5 within its city ordinances that outlines the penalties that are imposed since there is no legislative decision made higher up to defer those assessments. I can tell you that we have 4 motels that have not paid. All 4 of them have been sent a copy of Chapter 5, so they're well aware if they don't pay what the consequences are.
Thank you, Fred.
So just
Amanda
to-
had something else.
And then
just to follow
Amanda.
Up with that, I believe interest is set at 1%. Fred can verify per month if they don't pay. We're just starting to see the first wave of legislative action. So I know that addressed property tax payments and hardships and not charging interest on those, which I think is set to be passed by the Senate tomorrow morning. I think much like we're starting to see some relief for property tax payments, I think room tax will eventually get taken up, but I think, you know, at this point, we should wait and see what the state does.
Thank you, Amanda. And just to kind of recap, I mean, the point of this agenda item was just to make the public and the council aware that city staff and myself, we are tracking what's going on, not only with the state, but within our own community. And we're looking ahead and we're thinking about, you know, number one, how can we help our business owners and our community residents weather the storm? And then what we can do when it gets time where we can start to think about recovering and coming back online with all of our services. So does anyone else have anything they want to add to that? Okay, thank you for your good comments. We'll move on then to the personnel, item 9 on the agenda, Personnel Committee, which would be E, update on the staffing, city staffing and recruitment. And for this, if Hope is on the call, I'll turn it over to her to give us a little update. I know you included a memo, but perhaps you can just verbally, for the record, tell us what's going on.
Yes, so we are still down an officer in the police department. We had to postpone the testing. We had hoped to get some interviews scheduled and testing going. But unfortunately, because of the COVID-19, we had to cancel all of the schedule and the testing and the interview process and everything. So we're kind of in a holding pattern with that at this point until we can get that testing rescheduled. As far as the fire department goes, we are looking at having interviews scheduled in another week, and then meeting with police and fire. They are then going to be doing some testing. The problem is we can't get pre-employment tests done. So that's going to delay us in some aspects with the clinic. But we did have at least one new hire start today. He was a rehire from a part-time firefighter EMT, so we're happy to have him back. He was an Onalaska employee previously, and he lives in the area, so we're kind of glad to have him back in the area. So, and back with the city of Onalaska. So that is good news. We are still kind of holding off until we can actually come back to work to get the administrative assistant paralegal position. But we are actually going to be interviewing applicants for the office clerical support for inspection this week. We do need to get that position hired and working with Cindy before she retires. And I just received a retirement notification from one of our building inspector or plumbing inspector. So we will be getting another retirement.
Okay, and I just want to add to you, I know you mentioned in your memo, but not right now, is I just want to really congratulate our newest lieutenant, Jeremy Southward, was promoted, he's been acting lieutenant, and he has now been through the process and officially promoted. So I really want to congratulate him. He's a great member to the team. He's been a great member, and we're really glad to have it all official.
Yeah, so are we. And I know that was a long
So is he, probably.
Chief spent a lot of time on that. And so we're happy to get him officially as the lieutenant. And the nice part is we do have an eligibility list should we have any further lieutenants retire.
Okay, does anyone, Alderperson Knott?
Yeah, just a comment. I have a concern. It's out of the hands of the city staff. Reference the inability to bring on a police officer because the technical college can't do the physical readiness testing. The public safety manpower, my own view, should not be put on hold during an emergency. If anything, organizations should be trying to determine ways to streamline that process, because obviously that's not something where you want to be taking risk at during an emergency. So I would just ask that somehow, maybe when some of this starts to calm down, that the city get with the technical college and figure out that if this happens again, how can we make it work instead of just saying no?
I think we can call on Chief Ashback for a comment on that. Chief, are you on the call?
Yes, thank you, Your Honor. That is something certainly that we are very concerned about, the delay in hiring this last position. And so right now we're trying to figure out ways to get around, or not get around this testing, but essentially go through with the testing if we can conduct it on our own or what. I think we've been just kind of in a short holding pattern here, hoping that the technical college would come back online, but as all of us, we don't really know what's going to happen. So I don't know if I locked up. Are you guys there?
I can hear you.
Yes.
We can hear you.
Okay, you all locked up on my screen, so.
We were just listening so intently, it appeared like we were locked up, but really we
Wow,
were.
I didn't realize I had that power. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Anyway, I hope that answered your question, but yes, we do definitely need to streamline this and keep moving forward with this position as quickly as possible.
I think what I'm hearing the council say is if there is some way that you can find to fulfill the requirement in a new way, please let us know.
Or under
Mayor Smith, if you
emergency
can't see,
conditions.
Chief Hayes wants to add something.
Okay, Chief Hayes.
Yes, ma'am. One thing that we have looked at since we moved away from our previous recruiting techniques which was through the technical colleges, and we have done our recruitment through our Facebook and city website. We have received probably 36 applications for individuals with previous experience. So what we have done for those that will be interviewed next week, as well as those we'll send forward to the Police and Fire Commission, are those individuals that are currently working with other agencies. So they have already been screened with physicals as well as drug screening. Even though we'll do it ourselves as much as we can, we have tried to identify individuals that have previous experience. So we're trying to expedite our process, at least on our side, because we're down obviously 2 positions after Austin starts today to try to get through that. So alderperson Knott, we're trying to look at individuals that already are in positions that may not necessarily be compromised by physicals and or drug screenings that can move to the top of the list, whereas we have many individuals behind us that that we can look at once this cloud clears.
Thank you for that, Chief Hayes. And let's go to Alder Wolf.
Thank you, Your Honor. I know the city of La Crosse had a situation last year in 2019, and I don't know if they are still going away from Western Technical, but they went with Chippewa Valley. Is that an option for us?
Who would like to answer that?
I guess I would chime in that's not an option for us because as Chippewa Valley would also be closed. And so it's a matter of trying to get some of the equipment to run the test ourselves. And that would be the next thing we would need to explore if the technical college is going to be closed for quite a bit longer. Then we need to explore how to do the physical testing ourselves.
On the fire side, we were only using Chippewa Valley, whereas City of La Crosse was using Chippewa Valley and Fox Valley. But as Chief Ashbeck noted that they're both kind of shut down. However, we have received almost 3 times as many applications by not going through the technical colleges and conducting our own recruiting process and our own hiring process without going through the technical schools, which now La Crosse, the fire chief of La Crosse, has said that they're looking at going away from it, and Chief of Holman has said they're looking at going away from it and follow our suit as well.
Thank you for that, Chief. Let's go to Hope. Hope
Yeah,
Berchel.
and I think the difference is with the fire department, we had been going through in a consortium through Chippewa Valley Technical College, and we'd been getting a lot of applicants that were applying for all agencies that were through the consortium. We're not getting the same thing with the police department, and a lot of the police department applicants are really green. They're coming right out of the academy. We're not getting a lot of people that are transferring from other agencies, or I would call them more professional interviewers. So we don't have the same quality of applicants that we would have in the fire department, and we've been utilizing our process and not using the CDTC or other technical colleges. The biggest thing is we're trying to use some sort of screening method to make sure that they physically can do the active requirements of the job. And what we're doing wasn't effective. And the Gunderson clinics, we could do a pre-work screen. They're not doing them right now. So we tried to jump on board with the technical colleges. So we're trying to utilize some sort of legitimate screening method that we can test people to make sure they can physically do the functions of the job. We have had Gunderson come out and actually validate the process for the fire departments. We can actually run our own kind of CPAP process. So it's a little different for the police department than it is for the fire department.
Okay, well, and thank you for that. And I think the important thing is, you know, everything is different now. So we need to do things differently and be able to respond and think outside of the box. And I'll go to Alder Knott. Go ahead.
I might not have made myself as clear as I wanted to, I guess. So, yeah, I understand it is what it is right now. And as I said earlier, I know that this isn't a city's issue. I mean, we're suffering the ramifications of shutdowns of other organizations. But as this starts to come back to normalization here sometime in the near future, hopefully, I'd like that maybe this becomes a discussion amongst the emergency management community, because this is going to affect, this has got to be affecting far more than Onalaska. This really needs to be brought up, and perhaps even at the state level emergency management organizations on future shutdowns for emergencies, there must be exceptions for law enforcement and fire so that they can hire people. I mean, if this was an emergency that were to go on now for several more months, I mean, we'd be talking entire communities starting to break if they can't bring people on board because technical college or Chippewa or somebody isn't open. I mean, that's, to me, is just silly. So these conversations, I'm just hoping that our police and fire can help bring them forward as well to fix this for the future. This is something new for the whole nation, and we just have to learn from it.
Your Honor.
Thank you for that. Alder Stevens?
To maybe build off of Alder Knott's contribution, because these are strange times that we're living in, and there are emergency powers that are granted to city government, can we perhaps simply waive the requirements and maybe make it some sort of enhanced probationary? You have to pass these tests at a later date, but then we can start the hiring process sooner for somebody that we think is a qualified candidate.
Thank you for that question. Is that something you can answer, Amanda? I'm thinking of like the old fashioned sheriff's posse.
I'm going to defer to Hope on that, but I think we'd have to look at what our union contracts say. And
The struggle is because they are our standards, and if we loosen our standards, we are putting ourselves at risk. Because if that person doesn't meet our standards, and they become injured, or we have a severe illness or injury because they don't meet our standards, then we're loosening those restrictions and we're putting our other employees at risk because they don't meet those standards. So it's really a legal nightmare.
Could we perhaps talk to the union and see if we can get some sort of waiver? I mean, they must understand that this is a extraordinary circumstance.
I think going back to what Hope said, though, it's not just the union, it's also a worker compensation issue. It's the risk of if they don't have the adequate measures and procedures in place and something happens and they injure one of our one of our other employees in the process, and then they haven't met the standards. It's just kind of
I mean, we have the job descriptions that really outline what the standards are for employment and what the physical standards are, like the psychological standards and those. What's nice is we've been able to continue to do the psychologicals. They've been doing them online and doing like the Zoom meetings and things like that. So that's not been held back. But if we weren't able to do a psychological exam, that would push back our ability to hire. That is a key aspect of doing this job, is having those psychological examinations to make sure that they can mentally prepare and understand the mental aspects of the job. So it's unfortunate, but at the same token, we don't want to hire somebody that could potentially put our employees at risk.
Thank you, Hope. Chief Hayes.
I just want to clarify, so with HR, so we can still do the psychological because our latest employee has done that via web and at a distance. As far as the physical, could we not require them within, as soon as the release is, the physicals are released, whether it be through Gunderson or Mayo or whoever, that we could still hire an individual, but they would still have to complete a physical and their drug screening to complete their probationary period. I'm just trying to understand as we go through the interview process in the next 2 weeks, where we stand with that.
I'm not as concerned about the drug screen as I'm concerned about the physical agility. So had the applicant not completed a CPAT exam, that would be an issue. So what we're talking about is that physical agility and the psychological, which are more key. We don't have issues with people typically not passing the physical, basically the physical exam, which is basically a drug screen and some basic information. This particular individual had already done the physical exam through Gunderson, and so had already passed the exam. So I wasn't as concerned about it as well.
I'd hope in some of these cases, would it be possible to start moving candidates through the interview process and then have any like final position offer dependent on completion of whatever items were missing? So we could like start to queue up some people, and then as soon as whatever tests they were missing became available, it would really shorten the time, even if we didn't actually officially hire them and have them start, at least we'd have them right at the gate, ready to start moving forward.
And that's just a discussion that the chiefs and I will have to discuss, because there's a process that we've been utilizing. So it's just a matter of if we want to change that right now, then we can go ahead and look at that.
Well, not just for that, but for all staff positions that we're trying to fill right now.
All staff positions, other staff positions are a lot different than the police and fire. Police and fire are completely different animals.
Okay, does anyone else have any questions or comments? All right, thank you everyone for your input. Hope, do you have anything to add? Okay, we'll go on then to the administrative committee, which is item 10 on the agenda. F is approval of change of agent for Quick Trip 643 at 1276 Crossing Meadows Drive on Alaska to Mark Wagner. So if we could get a motion on the floor.
Are we motioning to approve? Please remind me again.
Yep, so the person in charge, the alderperson in charge of that committee is going ahead and making the motion to approve as stated on the agenda. We're getting a second, we're having the discussion, because this hasn't been discussed previously, so we don't know if maybe in the end of the day, you don't want to approve it. You don't, if you put it on the floor, you do not have to vote in favor of it if you change your mind. But we would like a motion to put it on the floor just for consistency, since we're doing the meeting virtually.
Okay, thank you. I will make a motion to approve item F, 10F for the approval of change of agent for Quick Trip 643 as per the printed agenda.
And I'll second that.
Thank you. We have a motion on the floor by Diane Wolf. It's been seconded by Tom Smith, and it is to approve the change agent for Quick Trip. And I'll ask Carrie if there's anything we need to know about this item for the record.
No, this is just a formality. They're changing their manager position there, and they're required to put it on file with us once the change is made.
Thank you, Carrie. Is there any questions or comments from the committee?
This is pretty typical. We've done this many times, Diane and I as chairs.
Thank you, Tom. Anything else? Okay, we'll go ahead for the vote then. And as a reminder, the motion on the floor is to approve the change agent for Quick Trip. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Those opposed say no. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. The next item is G, approval of the operator's license as listed on the report dated April 3rd of 2020. So again, Diane, if you'll go ahead.
Sure. I will make a motion to approve the operator's licenses as listed on report dated April 3rd, 2020, as listed in our packet.
I'll second.
We have a motion by Diane Wolf, seconded by Tom Smith, and I'll ask Carrie again if there's anything unique or different about these operator license that would be important to note.
No, they're just coming forward for approval. They've gone through a background check. So we're just looking for approval from council.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments from the committee? Not seeing any. The motion on the floor is approval of the operator's license. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Those opposed, please say no. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Now we're on to Board of Public Works. Item H is approval of the 2020 pavement maintenance items. Let's see, I'm gonna put them all in a group. I'll just state them all. Let's see if I get my next page. So there's 4 items for the 2020 pavement maintenance items. Just to make it smoother, I'll just say what they all are. And then if someone would please make a motion and second it, and then we'll have the discussion. We'll ask to hear from Jared after. So item H is approval of the 2020 pavement maintenance items. Item 1 is purchase of fiber patching material from Sherwin Industries in the amount of $23,689.50. Item 2 is installation of fiber patching materials by Farner Asphalt Sealers in the amount of $117,600. Item 4 is center line painting by Twin City Striping in the amount of $19,940. And item 4 is the chip sealing pavement maintenance by La Crosse County Highway Department in the amount of $199,088.
As Chair of Board of Public Works, I will make a motion to approve. Do we want to go ahead and take them all 4 or each one? What would your?
I thought we should just do it all together.
Okay, I will make a motion to approve items H1, H2, H3, and H4 per the printed agenda.
I'll second that as vice chair.
Thank you. Thank you, Diane and Tom. The motion was by Diane Wolf. The second was by Tom Smith. We have a motion on the floor to approve the 2020 pavement maintenance items as listed. Jared, you want to just do a quick summary about this being a budgeted item and so on?
Yes, Mayor, thank you. This mirrors our many previous years of what we're doing pavement maintenance wise, purchase of fiber patch material, installation of fiber patch material, which is used for crack filling of city streets, center line striping by Twin City Striping, and then our yearly chip seal by La Crosse County Highway Department. Chip sealing prices are still low with the bids that have come in through the county for emulsion and chip. These prices are budgeted through the yearly capital improvements project and are consistent with previous years.
Thank you, Jared. And can you just give the council just a brief philosophy behind our pavement maintenance program and how we try to keep up with that each year and how very important it is for long-term quality of streets, just in case somebody needs the education.
Yep, that is correct. We do invest a lot of our capital improvements program monies into pavement maintenance. We feel this is the biggest, largest bang for the buck. We do, as you know, if you drive around on our city streets, try to keep them at a high level of service. We not only replace them, but we try to, if you look at any of the streets within the city, they're less than 20 years old. They've been chip sealed, they've been crack filled, variety of things multiple times. So we really feel by doing this work, we can get anywhere from 40 to 50 years out of a city street. Some of our high volume streets don't quite get that, but most of the residential streets do. And it really shows in our phaser rating that we have and just our general street quality in general of how we take care of the city streets.
Thank you for that, Jared. Are there any questions or comments from the older people? Okay, not seeing anyone wave their hand. We have a motion on the floor to approve the 2020 pavement maintenance items listed as 1 through 4. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, please say no. Motion carries unanimously. Item I is approval of the Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources MS4 Stormwater Annual Report.
I will make a motion to approve the Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources Stormwater Annual Report.
I'll second that unless somebody else wants to.
Thank you. The motion was made by Diane Wolf, seconded by Tom Smith to approve this report. Jared, would you just do a real brief recap of what this report is for the record?
Correct. This is our annual stormwater report that is required by the Wisconsin DNR through state statute. We are very similar to previous years. We do a very good job at public education with other municipalities within the county, a very strong public education program. We were actually audited last year by the Wisconsin DNR. So not only did they look at all the previous year's reports, they came in and did a verbal interview with us. And we did a very good job at that. We are doing some things that were budgeted through the capital improvements budget to finish up a few items that they did have questions on. But I think our MS4 program is satisfying the requirements that are outlined in the state statutes.
Thank you, Jared. Are there any questions or comments from the Alder people? Okay, hearing none, then we'll have a vote. The question on the floor is approval of the Wisconsin DNR MS4 Stormwater Annual Report. All of those in favor, please say aye.
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 Those opposed say no. Motion carries unanimously. Item J is approval of the Elmwood Lift Station modifications, specifically the control panel, the heater, and the louver replacement in the amount of $18,942.
I move to approve the Elmwood Lift Station modifications per the printed agenda in the amount of $18,942.
Second.
Thank you. The motion on the floor was made by Alder Diane Wolf, seconded by Alder Tom Smith. Under discussion, Jared, would you like to say a brief recap of what the modification, why the modifications are important?
Correct. That lift station was installed in the early 90s, 1991, and that control panel has not been replaced since then. So this would replace the control panel at that lift station. Currently, that lift station has no heat at that interior control room where the generator is. So we are going to install a heater and then install a new louver at the same time.
Hey,
And is
Jared,
this-
this is Tom. Where's that at? Where's that one at located?
It's actually behind Outback Steakhouse. You go behind the old the dollar store back off of Marketplace, behind where the toy store used to be.
Okay,
The toy store closed over on Marketplace.
got it. I
Behind
know
that
where it
strip
is.
mall.
Okay.
It's actually
Thank
back
you.
by the interstate right-of-way fence. It's not
Thank
a
you.
very large building. It's about 20 by 25.
So that was
Jared,
the
is-
original, initial one? The
Yeah,
initial
that's
one
the
for that
original
Elmwood Park?
building still, the
Yeah.
original building. We've replaced the pumps in it previously, but a lot of the generator and everything are original.
Jared, is
thank
this a budgeted item?
Correct. We did have $19,000 budget in the approved 2019 operating budget equipment line items.
Thank you. Are there any other questions or comments from the group? Okay, I don't see any, so we'll go ahead with the vote. The motion on the floor is to approve the Elmwood Lift Station modifications in the amount of $18,942. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Those opposed say no. Motion carries unanimously. Item K is review and consideration of the 2020 pavement projects with Matthew Construction in the amount of $771,115.10.
I move that we approve the 2020 pavement project with Matthew Construction in the amount of $771,115.10.
Second.
Thank you. The motion was made by Diane Wolf, seconded by Tom Smith, to approve the pavement projects. Jared, would you do a summary?
Yeah, so that bid did come in. We did receive favorable bids through the 2020 capital improvements project budget. We did have budgeted $760,000. The bid did come in at $771,115.10, but we did add more streets. We actually added back in a street that was taken out of the original funding for the capital improvement budget. So we're actually doing more than what we had budgeted for. Staff is very confident that we can keep it under the $760,000 budgeted item, but I'd like to approve the bid as we had it submitted.
Thank you for that, Jared. Any questions or comments from the committee? Diane Wolf?
Thank you, Your Honor. And Jared, I want to thank you for noting that. And as I remember when we were working on the capital improvements list this past year for 2020, I was not pleased that we were going to have to, due to budget constraints, we had to cut. And I know that was like, I believe I looked it up as a $139,000 project. So I'm very pleased to see that we were able to put that back in. So thank you for that. 'Cause I think
Any
it was
other,
0.5 Pacer, I think. So yeah, it needed to be done. So I'm very happy. So
Yeah.
thank you for that, Diane. Any other questions or comments from the committee?
Just,
Okay.
Madam,
Alder Stevens.
so in the event that the construction costs are $760,000, is that what we, Jared, I think, said that they would keep the cost under. What happens to the budgeted funds? Do those stay within Board of Public Works?
So,
$11,000 difference.
yeah, so currently, if we had to go over the 760, but go up to the 771, we would use previously bonded funds from other paving projects from previous years. I do not believe we'll go over the 760 if we end up less than the 760, as we have in other years past. It stays in that capital improvements account and can be used for future projects.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other questions or comments from anyone? All right, not hearing any, the motion on the floor is to approve the 2020 pavement projects. The total is $771,115.10. So all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Those
Aye.
opposed say no. Motion carries unanimously. Okay, moving on then to 11, Parks, Recreation, and Library Board. Item L is approval of the purchase and installation of a new handicap accessible door opener for the community center by Glass Service Center for a cost not to exceed $3,200.82.
Your Honor, I move that we approve the purchase and installation of the new handicap accessible door opener for the community center by Glass Service Center for a cost not to exceed $3,200.82.
Second.
Thank you, Alder Stevens. Motion on the floor by Alder Stevens, seconded by Alder Wolf. Is there any discussion on this item? Alder Wolf.
Thank you. So quick question for Dan Wick. I remember when this was first installed about 2005 or so, if I remember correctly. So is this the first update or the first change that we've had to do?
We've updated some of the internal components of it, but with it being the senior center that we're doing meals and things with, it gets a lot of use. And
Right.
so we've had a number of issues with this. We've done some other minor maintenance with it, but we just can't get the door to work consistently.
Okay.
So our plan is to use the ADA funds that we have set aside with the ADA transition plan, which was also identified in the plan, that we needed improvement. So this falls right in line with that.
And thank you for that, Dan. I happen to remember this well because I remember I had a number of seniors who reached out to me about that time, my first time on council, and I remember going to you and working with you on this. So,
Right.
so that's why this stuck out to me. So, and I know that the seniors were very appreciative about that, and I still hear about it from time to time. So thank you for that.
All right, thank you, everyone. Is there any more discussion on this item? Okay, the motion on the floor then is to approve the handicap accessible door opener, and the cost is $3,200.82. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Those opposed say no. Motion carries unanimously.
Aye.
What was that? Not sure what that sound was, but I'm going to move on to item M.
Kim,
Yes.
Steven's having connection issues, so he actually got kicked out. He was just
Oh.
coming back in again with it, so he was just saying aye on that.
Oh, I see. And that's what happened to him before too. So do we see, I don't see him here. Is he
Yeah,
on?
he's back.
Yep.
I see him.
Okay, I have no picture and no microphone for Stephen right now.
Stephen, oh, now.
He just got kicked off.
There he goes
Here he
again.
is. Here he
There
is.
he
He's
is.
walking. Oh, he looks really happy. Welcome back.
He's smiling.
I'm moving closer
happy.
to my Wi-Fi connection, so now I'm
Okay.
just standing in the kitchen.
All right. Well, whatever works. We're in the home stretch and over. Did we lose Jim Olson? Is he still on the call? Anybody know?
Jim's on the phone.
Okay, good. See, Good job, Jim.
He's social distancing with Eric.
We're chatting.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Eric, for helping that. All right, we're in the home stretch here. We're on item M, under Park Rec and Library Board. Approval of the youth t-shirt printing to games people play at a cost not to exceed $7.
Your Honor, first I'd like to point out that I believe this is stated incorrectly on the agenda. I believe that's $7 a shirt. So per the packet, I will move that we approve the youth t-shirt printing to games people play at a cost not to exceed $4,816.
I will second that.
Okay, so we have a motion on the floor to approve. The cost per shirt is $7 for a total of $4,816. Is that correct?
That's correct, but I would ask Mr. Wick to verify that we're not just approving $7.
Yeah, so I prefer the $7 a shirt. As we go through our program, sometimes we have to go back and add more to it. That's why we usually use just the $7 a shirt, because the number sometimes fluctuates. This cost is covered by the sponsorship that our department does do that covers all of our youth printing. So there is no cost. This isn't a part of the tax roll. It's all sponsorship money from generous donations from our sponsors throughout the community.
Thank you, Dan. So I guess the question is the motion that we have on the floor the one we want to stick with, or do you want to amend it?
I will remove my second if Dan wants to remove his motion and restate it. Would be cleaner.
So I'm sorry, Dan, can you repeat do we want to keep the motion to be $7 per shirt?
Yes, we need, I just don't want.
Dollar amount on there.
What?
Shouldn't we have a maximum dollar amount?
The difficulty we run into, Dan, with that is if we have more kids sign up for certain programs, then we would have to come back and get authorization. That's why we use the $7 a shirt. It's not that we come back and all of a sudden the vendor raises that cost to us, so we're paying something higher than that.
Okay, and then just to clarify that the expense is not borne by the taxpayers, it's borne by
it's through our sponsors
of the teams. Okay,
correct.
I will restate my motion to approve the youth t-shirt printing to games people play at a cost not to exceed $7 per shirt.
And I will second that motion.
Thank you, Dan. Stevens made the motion. Diane Wolf seconded it for $7 a shirt. Any further discussion?
I think we covered it.
Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Those opposed, please say no. Motion carries unanimously. Item N, approval of the purchase of a new automatic pool vacuum from Carico Aquatics at a cost not to exceed $9,995.
Your Honor, I move that we approve the purchase of a new automatic pool vacuum from Carico Aquatics at a cost not to exceed $9,995.
Thank you, sir. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion by Dan Stevens, seconded by Stephen Knott, to approve the purchase of the pool vacuum. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Those opposed say no. Motion carries unanimously. And our final item under item 12, the administrator report, is the staffing and scheduling during the health emergency. I will turn it over to Eric.
Thank you. In recognition of the time, I'll try to keep it as short as possible. But I think it's important that both the council and the public have an understanding of the changes that we've been making in staff and staffing. So with the declaration of the health emergency by the council in March, we have taken steps to modify our staffing and scheduling in order to really meet three equally important goals. The first is to flatten the curve and not have our staff be the transmission points to the public for the spread of the COVID-19 virus, and thus overwhelm potentially our healthcare systems. Second is to maintain the provision of critical and essential services to our residents by ensuring that entire shifts or even departments are not wiped out by getting sick or being placed in quarantine. The third is to protect the health and welfare of the city employees during this crisis Therefore, in addition to closing the city hall and other facilities, we've implemented some following the scheduling practices. First, following Governor Evers' Safer at Home proclamation and best practices to reduce the spread of the coronavirus, all staff who is able to work from home has been assigned by me, the department heads and managers, supervisors, to work from home as much as possible. It's not really an optional. We are mandating that for the staff that are able to do so. For those that cannot work from home or work remotely, we have implemented in most other departments some form of a split or modified shift. Department heads, managers, and supervisors are reducing the likelihood of spread by distancing employees physically as much as possible by assigning each employee to a schedule of work on site and being on call from work at home and rotating. Employees, while being on call, are expecting to be called in at a moment's notice for any work that needs to be done. And again, these modified schedules are not really voluntary by the employee. It is assigned by the management team. I've directed department heads to continue to call employees in as needed so that critical and essential tasks do get completed, while keeping in mind, though, the use of social distancing while working. Employees whose nature of work cannot be completed at home or split shifts are not feasible and whose work is mission critical at this moment were scheduled regularly, again with consideration for social distancing while working as much as possible. This occurred mostly in the clerk and finance suite in the run-up to the election. In some occasions where employees cannot work from home, split shifts are not feasible, and when no essential work is available, employees may be assigned administrative leave. Again, it's assigned, it's not a voluntarily leave, and this will be first utilized in particular in the clerk finance suite beginning this week. The city, as of yet, has not instituted any involuntary layoffs. However, part-time and seasonal workers who perform duties which have been affected by the closure of our facilities or by event cancellations have not been scheduled for work, and as such, they are at this point the only employees experiencing lost income. These employees will be scheduled as the workload calls for going forward. So to summarize, we've utilized many creative solutions to schedule employees at this time in order to keep our essential services operating, and as well as keeping the public and our employees safe. Keep in mind, employees do have options if after being assigned to work, they're not able to do so or do not wish to do so, various leave options. That includes sick time, personal days, vacation time, as well as the temporary but new 2 weeks worth of emergency leave, which the council has approved, as well as the federal EPSLA, which now employees may take advantage of. So any questions as to where we are with the scheduling?
Thank you, Eric. Does anyone have any questions or comments? Okay, well, thank you for that recap. I really appreciate it. Appreciate all the hard work everyone has put in to get us through this difficult time. Okay, not hearing anything else. The next item on our agenda is adjournment.
Motion to adjourn?
I will second.
Who was that? Was Stephen Knott? Okay, I have a motion from Tom Smith, seconded by Stephen Knott to adjourn. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. We are adjourned, and the time I have is 8:54. Thank you all for attending.
Aye.
I think overall it was a success.
Yep.
Good to see everyone.
Bye now.
See you next week.